Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to today's interactive session of Business as Usual. We're into week 3, and we are busy, and we're very excited about what's coming up. So I'm Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Jonathan Kirsting, who's also Vice President of Visibility at the Tech Council. A few things about today's call. It would not have been possible with the strong support of our good friends at Huntington Bank, who have stepped up to sponsor this series. If you don't know about Huntington, they are actually the largest SBA lender here in southwestern Pennsylvania. I also want to thank the team at AT&T for sponsoring our ongoing public policy series. They have been long-standing partners of the councils, and I particularly want to commend the team for all that they are doing at this critical time to help give parents, students, and teachers the tools they need for at-home learning. They recently donated $10 million to support that specific cause. They also have committed $5.5 million to provide additional support in the form of nourishing meals for first responders, medical personnel, and others in need impacted by COVID-19. Portions of that donation will go to support Feeding America, which supports the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank and Westmoreland County Food Bank, so as well as the Salvation Army, Whole Food Kitchen, and Team Rubicon. There's more about that on their website if you look at COVID-related activities. So as a quick programming note, this week we have a great lineup for you. Tomorrow we will be hosting a special trio of guests, which include Dr. Anthony Hamlet, Superintendent of the Pittsburgh Public Schools, as well as a few of our key friends from Aurora Innovation, Google, and Neighborhood Allies. And we also may have another special guest, so please stay tuned. On Wednesday, we will host Christina Casotis. She's the CEO of the Airport Authority, and to be followed tentatively this Friday by Congressman Connor Lamb. So we have another action-packed week so that you can sit and enjoy your lunch from wherever you are. And join us in terms of us making sure that this region gets continually kicked forward in doing the work that all of us do. So a little bit about the tech and our format for today's call. Most of you will have noticed we have muted your microphones. I would ask that you keep your microphones on mute throughout the call. Some of us have a lot of background noise going on around us. We want to ensure that everyone can hear our guest clearly. With that said, we want this call to be interactive. Please take note of the chat box at the bottom of your desktop screen. If you have questions for our guests, please type your question in that box along with your name and company. We will try to answer as many of these questions as possible. We will also collate all the questions and have the answers posted out on our website, because this, as well as all of our noon Zooms, have been archived and recorded, so you can listen to them whenever you want. And very importantly, this section is not for advertising your products. Please only ask questions in that box for chat. So now I have the pleasure of welcoming someone who I have had a great relationship in her 2 years, I think it's been 2 years and 4 months, that she has been in Pittsburgh, and that's Katharine Kelleman. She serves as the CEO of the Port Authority of Allegheny County, which is one of the most important organizations in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I'd like to welcome Katharine.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Why don't we jump into some questions? And so what I really wanted to start with was you and I have had the opportunity to catch up over the weekend, and I was fascinated by the lengths that you have gone to maintain critical services to people in Allegheny County, while also with the massive focus on driver and rider safety. Can you talk about your current state of operations in the region and share some of the safety related measures that you have implemented?
Well, first, thank you for that question. The most important thing for us clearly is the safety for our passengers and for the folks who are working for us every single day. I mean, just imagine in your own life, if it's a little terrifying to go to Giant Eagle, if your professional career is driving around the county and making life happen, even if we're down on ridership, there's still 40 or 50,000 people a day in our system. And they're getting to UPMC and Allegheny Health and all our grocery stores and just running all the places that they do. There's a lot of exposure there. So Early on, we started with measures of doubling up on orders for hand sanitizers, sanitizing wipes, and vehicle disinfectants. We watched what our friends on the West Coast were doing. So when San Francisco and Seattle kicked their disinfecting schedules up, we did the same thing. So where we are right now, every single Port Authority vehicle is disinfected before it goes out. So what does that mean? It means every hard surface that someone touches, so a pull cord for a stop, a stanchion bar for a passenger to hold on to, the driver's compartment, obviously, everything is completely disinfected every single day. If we have a biohazard or someone gets sick on a bus, we would pull it out of service immediately. And that's been our standard practice. So rail cars as well are getting disinfected every day. We are working with various programs. So if someone's out on quarantine, they can be out for the 4 weeks, or 2 weeks, I should say, and that's administrative time. If they're being tested for COVID, we cover that as well. You know, and like a lot of places, we have folks who are at high risk for other conditions. So we've been working with them on their attendance. This is our frontline folks. We have some old school measures too. So we have a 6-foot grid taped down on the floor. At all of our locations, the folks get a visual representation of how far apart 6 feet really is. In our work locations, we're sterilizing time clocks, we're sterilizing the touch screens folks use to get their work assignments, break rooms, so on and so forth. All of our rail stations are getting sterilized at least 5 days a week, if not 6 or 7, and our busway stations too. Internally, as quickly as we could move, we went to working from home for our various work groups that can do that, and doing remote work where possible for our other groups. So we brought on a CIO back in 2018, that's Jeff Devlin. And I can't say enough wonderful things about Jeffrey. And he's been very forward thinking about getting us on Teams and making sure that we all know how to use Zoom and getting us connected. So folks did have the ability to work from home essentially within just like a couple of clicks of a key, right? So we have folks working from home. We're doing all the sterilization. We've also moved our buses so folks board only at the rear door. And that means that you're not getting really close to an operator at the fare box. So that's a little more space both for the operator and the patrons. The second week of this going on, this lockdown work from home, we moved to a reduced schedule on a Wednesday, the same day we moved to rear door boarding. The reason we did that was we were down probably 75 to 80% on ridership. So we had a lot of vehicles with 2 or 3 patrons on them. We had room to take out some buses and folks still have good distance, but this also means we have fewer bus operators and train operators out there exposed. And it lets us conserve, which is a big deal here, the disinfecting equipment. So we order as much disinfecting equipment as we can, and so does everybody else. We want to make sure that however long this goes, that we're able to disinfect, and that way every vehicle that goes out is clean and it's safe for the folks who work for us, and it's also safe for the folks who ride. And that's been a lot of work. But I can't say enough good things about the really fantastic folks that work with us at Port Authority, not just out there managing the work of getting all this done on an overnight. After we're done, I'll take anyone who wants to go on a little midnight tour of the locations. It's very busy. We won't go in, but we'll go look. And then there's also been Herculean work by our planning group. They can get ridership data within 2 to 3 days. So we're putting out schedules that match up dynamically exactly what we see. Our road ops folks work 24 hours a day. And we have tools where they can see the load on a vehicle, so they can see how full it is. They can dispatch other services back and forth to make sure we have good social distancing. So it's been an all hands on deck effort, and I'm really proud of the work. Who thought enrollment would look easy by way of comparison, right?
Well, in all the years that you've been in transportation, which has been really all of your career to date, have you seen anything like this? Have you experienced anything similar to this?
I don't think any of us have. I mean, I think the initial response is, so clearly having been in Florida, we had hurricane response, but that's like an opposite of a blizzard, right? It's a finite issue going on. It's, you have a ramp up, X amount of time until you end up with a hurricane making landfall, and then it's just there for a day and then you ramp down. Again, in 2018, we had 2 significant floods here that knocked out service on the library line. We had the Norfolk Southern derailment. which in itself was unique. And of course, last year we had Sinkhole Bus. Who can forget?
Never forget the Sinkhole Bus.
Very famous.
Right? And we were joking around in a group text this weekend. Who would have thought that the Sinkhole Bus would just be like, hey, good times. So no, I don't think that, but I would say all these little things where you're like, I'm having a good day, and all of a sudden 50 tons of ballast have washed away from a security area. Like you can't pass a train there. That gets you in the practice of knowing how to move quickly. And just from a disaster response thing, I can't say enough about doing the tabletops that we do and the disaster response. So everyone on the team knows their role, but they trust that their coworker has their role covered. So then you can really focus on what it is you're trying to get done. So there we go.
So Katharine, I'm just curious. I'm so impressed with the amount of disinfection that's going on, obviously, because safety is top concern. Yep. I'm just assuming, you have enough supplies, right?
We do. So that's an excellent question. So going to this reduced schedule, we have about 25% fewer. I'm going to get this wrong. Rush hour normally has about 605 buses and 56 rail cars, 57 rail cars. We can do rush now. We can do our schedules with about 44, 42 rail cars. And we're doing the weekday bus schedules with about 450 buses. So that's 150 fewer vehicles to have to clean. Clearly we're maintaining them, but this means that we can go a little farther with the supplies we have. We have ordered aggressively out into the future. And if all else fails, we have bleach. Not like I'm saying we want to stick to bleach, but CDC does approve a bleach dilution if we would need to do that. And we have a supply where we can make this schedule for 3 months with bleach, but clearly our preference is to stick with the various antibacterial and disinfecting tools. We have misters too. They're not foggers, but it makes it easier to get through the buses so we can get the vehicles cleaned up a little faster. And we're on the phone. Our procurement team has been wonderful. Hi, John. Hi, Justin. Hi, Tony. They're on with these suppliers every single day. So we've got an order in for, X thousands of surgical masks, just like, we can't get the N95 line healthcare folks, but we're repurposing our upholstery shop to make reusable fabric masks that our staff can use. But even getting that elastic and such, there's a bit of a lead time on those supplies now.
So we're going to allow someone, Cigna has a question. That's a great question, and I wanted to see if you would answer that.
She's been a regular on this show as well, too, which has been great.
Hi, Katharine. First of all, thank you to the Tech Council, and also, Katharine, to you and everyone at Port Authority. You guys are doing an incredible job, especially in this idea of balancing business continuity and providing for people to be able to get to work as they need to with public transit, but then also, again, cutting back, focusing on safety. So I guess my question is, we just had the CARES Act passed. Do you feel like Port Authority will receive the funds it needs for its most critically identified needs in that?
Well, and thank you for the question. And I can't imagine being at Cigna is very easy right now either. So there we go. We will, so the CARES Act allocates about $140 million. It comes over to Port Authority. By way of comparison, in an average year, we recoup about $100 million in various revenues. So that's interest revenue, that's interest income separate, advertising revenue, that is passenger fares. So we anticipate we'll be really down for fares. So this will help us cover that. Our annual operating budget's about $450 million. So that includes fares coming in. So this covers about 4 months of the year. So we're very grateful to have this now, but I think our bigger question is, the state fiscal year runs July through June. So we're coming up on the end of the fiscal year. So we're in this position, like anybody who's using that schedule, that we're wrapping up this budget based on numbers that are okay today, knowing that it's going to be very, very different. And as we get into next fiscal year, we're going to see our various funding sources do this kind of thing. So before I got here, my predecessor was extremely focused on financial stability. And great work by the team for that. So we have a good reserve, but I don't know what that needs to look like in 2022 or 2023, but it's wonderful to get that money back from DC. Remember, that's our money going there. All of our Pennsylvanians are there, and let us keep this critical service on the road. So it's helpful, and thank you so much, Doyle, and our senators Toomey and Casey for getting that secured for us.
So let's dial back. You've been in the role I mentioned earlier since about 2 years, a little bit in a quarter, I think, and you immediately worked on setting the framework for a strategic plan. Getting ready to think about what's the next 25 years, which is very exciting. So as this outbreak started to accelerate, you were in the process of gathering community feedback for the future. How does this outbreak affect your planning process?
So the planning process is pretty solid, still goes forward. So there's a couple in there. So the planning process, we can rely on, folks did make my trip count or various census data. We have very good data on where folks are moving to, where they're coming from. So we have good ideas of up through right now, what the county and the region were starting to look like as far as making connections. So good examples. You and I talked a little yesterday. Mm-hmm. Even though Route 28X, goes through Oakland and then through downtown Pittsburgh and out to the airport, clearly there's not as much activity going on at the airport, but that route also hits a lot of job centers. So for instance, when the new Amazon fulfillment center opens up later this year, is Route 28X the route the folks will be taking to go out there, right? It goes to Robinson and any retail that is open. For instance, there's still the Home Depot, there's still the Lowe's, there's still these businesses there. Folks are taking this route. So just because the airport usage goes one way doesn't mean that route or that travel pattern is not useful for us. And that's planning data that we can keep looking at. We had a really ambitious schedule for public meetings. So our public meeting group with through Jim Ritchie, with also Dan DeBone and Melissa Gertie, been doing great work with our communities. And we were doing visits, and sometimes first time in 10 years, we'd been out to community centers in different neighborhoods to come out and say, what do you think of service? Where are you going? So clearly that is something we're not doing right now because we can't get out into these big locations. And you can't take a plan forward if folks can't weigh in on it, right? So I have all the data that we can work on, but at least in this universe, there's the difference between stated and observed preferences, and it's sort of aspirational what your transit network is going to do for you. So we're looking at, in these areas, are there different ways we can engage communities, not to substitute the face-to-face, but rather than lose the momentum, how do we talk to folks in this window going through the summer to find out, do they see the same problems the data is showing us? Do we agree on the information? Can we build a solution going forward together? So I'm optimistic we can still keep that long-term vision going. And we're also resolving our strategic plan. So when I came on, we developed a tactical plan, just a one-year thing of focus on on-time performance, customer excellence, safety, employee engagement, to get used to going through that sort of objective measurement that you need for a strategic plan. And we were getting ready to have our internal work groups on our strategic plan. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes over this summer and through this window of, life with COVID. Things are, it's a challenge to plan for the future, but folks are relying on us to make good decisions, so we don't have any other choice.
Well, you actually have made an investment in actually hiring a data manager, and you've been
we did
some interesting things. Could you talk about that?
Yeah. So we this year brought on board, well, it was last year, Ellie Newman, who so I know her as a Twitter friend, and she's a big transit advocate. So when she came over from the county, we were thrilled because not only does she have an excellent resume, she really, really is passionate about transit. So she's been working on a lot, and her group in the planning department have been working on a lot of dashboards and really fast turnaround on data. So again, today being Monday, she's looking at ridership data from last Wednesday. And in a regular universe, that's fantastic because then we know what are the fluctuations by like time of day or different seasons in the year. So, September's a heavily used month, but December not so much, for instance. So what are those fluctuations? What kind of trends are we seeing? And she can dig down into, when a bus is running, how late does a bus run or a train run before it starts shedding riders, or they go into the next one? How close are physical transfer points? So that's been the key of getting data that we can bring forward to make these schedule decisions right now. Again, we didn't just go to a Saturday because we have so many people who would be affected. They wouldn't have a Saturday route. So Ellie's data with our really great scheduling team, that's Chris Walker and Philip St. Pierre, and all this is from David Huffaker's group. He's our Chief Development Officer. He's been here about a year and a half, looking at how to make these dynamic changes with our very strong support from this wonderful operations group we have. And you can log on now with the TrueTime app. You can see the load on your vehicle, which is, if you're worried right now about taking a bus, it's full, the app will tell you, are we, is it a light load, is it a heavy load? I want to say we were the first transit agency in the country to go live with that data. And it could, the idea was, if it's rainy, do I want to run out to the bus stop because my bus is full? Do I want to wait for the next bus? Give people a tool they could use who knew it was going to be social distancing, right?
Right.
So it's been really cool to see this additional information come in. And another shout out to Jeffrey's group, without IT focusing on this infrastructure to make sure that we have obviously like the newest iterations of software, but the connections necessary and the best tools out there. This would be academic because we wouldn't have access to this information.
So non-COVID related, so other things you've been doing that are innovative and you've been testing, including electric vehicles, Wi-Fi, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about that now?
So we went live in December. I think we started advertising that we had Wi-Fi in at least 400 of our 700 buses. And that's been tied into our fare. We're moving into paying your fares on your phone, right? So instead of using your Connect card, you could download the app. We're in beta test right now. So if folks are out there riding, you could download it, but the scanner's at the front of the bus, you're not using the front door. So hold that thought. But the process would be getting to something where you're just flashing your phone to a scanner so you can board faster. You could buy your ticket at a bus stop as opposed to trying to find somewhere ahead of time if you weren't close to a ticket vending machine. And we need Wi-Fi for that because your Connect card now, for lack of a better expression, it's a dumb card. It knows that it's good, but when you swipe the card, if it hasn't been reloaded, it's hard for us to get information. Having the fare on your phone it's dynamic, it's real time, needed Wi-Fi. So imagine that we needed this much Wi-Fi for fare collection and this much more meant you could stream whatever you're streaming. So we're happy to be able to add that Wi-Fi. It's throughout the fleet, and we'll be adding it to rail. Ideally by the end of the year. We were saying the end of the summer, but then we're focusing on disinfecting and a lot of other stuff. So the Wi-Fi has been very cool. We also, our newer vehicles have USB ports on them. So if you're out and about, you can charge your phone or whatever your device is. Because we all end up in that situation. And we took delivery of 2 electric buses early this year, and you can see them out. I want to say we're testing them in various iterations on the 88 pins. You'll see this very blue bus with a sign that says it's electric. And once we get through COVID, yes, we will figure out some sort of electric slide competition or video kind of thing. But let us get through this first. So it's been neat bringing those new tools in. Some of our folks at other transit agencies have already adopted them, some haven't, but it's, cleaner, greener, easier to use. Just trying to be better citizens and reduce friction, right?
Very cool stuff. So got a question for you, Katharine. What could the tech community do right now to be helpful to you and the Port Authority to help you get through this?
Stay home.
I love it.
Even if it's a beautiful day and you have nothing else to do not joyride. I cannot stress that enough. I'm sure everybody's staying home all the time, right, Audrey? Right, everybody?
Yes.
So first, please stay home. And if you need to go out, of course, we're happy to help you, but be observant of social distancing. If you can use a mask, the governor says to do it. So that's first and foremost. Second, as we go through this, our legislators have been really supportive, but we will be moving to rocky times as we get into the next couple of years because there's just going to be less resources out there for what we can do. So make sure that we are clear with our electeds on the value that transit is out there. In the future, I guarantee that my bus is cleaner than almost any other Uber, right? So after this, when folks start traveling around, do we see folks moving away from rideshare? Do we see folks looking for social connections again? And I would say, I think the Tech Council is uniquely positioned because you've got these cool, dynamic, different personalities. And as you start seeing these trends, let us share that information, share observations with us. you know, and keep plugged in with what's going on. We have various alerts you can sign up through at Port Authority, and let's just continue to make this the best county and the best city that we can. And you know, we came here 2 years ago. Our boys were 4 and 5. They're going to grow up here, and we want to continue to turn this into the town where they will turn into decent people, right? And part of that is that sense of being in there together. So stay home and tweet aggressively that you love us. I think that's where
we like that a lot. And final question, if Roger has another question, I definitely want to know, how is you as a leader of the Port Authority keeping yourself de-stressed in these times, if that's even possible, but just you're doing something to kind of keep it level, right?
So not to expound too much. So what do you expect, like, the CEO to do in normal circumstances? Set the tone, empower the team, get the cash. So we have wonderful leaders who've helped us get the cash. The folks who are actually driving the buses, cleaning the trains, out there coming in every single day when their families are nagging them not to go there. These are the heroes. You know, the folks in operations who come in on a Friday at 3 a.m. just because they want to support their team.
Awesome.
So like when we were visiting East Liberty, Paul Zatek and Chuck Lights were there. These are 2 guys back in the maintenance group, and it was 3:30 in the morning. So having a wonderful team who is really, really passionate, I can't say enough good things about that. And I would say my stress load is probably better than a lot of parents, because my husband is doing a lot of the educating of the children. And thank God for the sun being out, right? So we are getting the kids out of the house a lot. And we actually have done like Zoom and conference calling with our friends. And I don't know if you're up on this, Netflix, if you go through Chrome, has an extension where you can watch the same Netflix movie and chat with all of your friends. So do that.
It's
super
great.
Cool.
So we have another question. If we have time for another question. And Brian, if you could unmute Griffin Schultz, he's asking a good question. Griffin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure can.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot here.
That's right. It's what we do here.
Thanks for joining the call. I don't know if you know me, but I think you know our company, Rapid Flow Technologies. So we do and you've said, you know, great things about us in the past. This is not a commercial though. I read a report recently that 60% of Uber and Lyft traffic is, when they do surveys, is not replacing people driving their cars, but it's replacing public transit trips, walking, bicycling, which means that Uber and Lyft are causing a lot of congestion in city streets. Are you seeing that in Pittsburgh? If so, this is all pre-COVID, obviously.
Like not today to crack a joke, but yeah. No, I think so the Pittsburgh experience is a little different. I'd say when I was in Tampa, we definitely saw rideshare picking up discretionary trips, but you know, that was in a place where, I mean, the density on average in Tampa is less than half of what it is in Pittsburgh. And the schedule was very different. So I just, a very long story, not going to do that here, but my planning director drove for Lyft, and he came in and was talking about people could go to the grocery store at 9 o'clock and come home at 9:25. And if they were waiting for the bus, it wouldn't run that late, or your chicken would get warm while you were waiting. Like, it's a real issue in warmer parts of the country. We don't have that necessarily here in Pittsburgh, but a chunk of that has been, Twitter handle for Port Authority is @PGH Transit. Sorry about that. Saw that pop up.
That's good. That's good.
And there we go. Thank you. Oh, Alexa sent it to everyone. I'm out there too, but it's Ms._Egan. So stay in touch with us. We have a bunch of different Twitter channels, but going back to this, so Pittsburgh's had transit since 1859. Route 91, now it's a Butler route, started off as a horse-drawn omnibus. So the land use that all of us have grown up around, I guess if you're from here, that my kids are going to grow up around, is much more pedestrian focused. So Uber and Lyft here are replacing longer trips that folks would have made, which were somewhat discretionary, but we're keeping a lion's share on transit. So nationally, we've seen up through now, transit use had been declining based on, you know, cheaper gas, but also gentrification, neighborhood displacement, and that hasn't been the experience in Pittsburgh. So yes, it is true that Uber and Lyft do generate more congestion, if for no other reason than there's that positioning between the trips, right? Like if I go to Giant Eagle, my car stays in the parking lot. But if I get dropped off at Giant Eagle, someone goes from there to pick somebody else up. So it definitely is a net generator of congestion. But if you can get somebody to start taking rideshare, they're getting to that point that they're not parking and they're realizing that driving themselves kind of stinks. So that's a market that we can move into also. So that works really well for us.
So Katharine, we are right at our 30-minute mark. Want to be sensitive because I know that you are busy and you took the time to be with us today. We so appreciate the work that you're doing and leading. And I promise I will come out with you one night. You just let me know and do whatever I can to support the work that you're doing during these times and, you know, post and pre-COVID.
All times, absolutely.
Well, and it's a really fantastic team that, you know, however, I'm confident that however long this lasts, we're going to go through it and give fantastic service. And, you know, from the folks in customer service who are out there getting more calls from schedules, or the maintenance trainers who didn't realize they were going to have to do all these things. It's been fantastic to see everybody rowing in the direction of getting service done. So I am lucky where I am, and I am delighted to have been asked to join you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for being a good friend to all of us. So as we close, I want to once again thank the teams at Huntington Bank and AT&T for all that they do. Right now, both of those companies are working in very different ways, but in collaborative ways to move this region forward and give people access. And I'm also looking to having all of you back tomorrow for Dr. Hamlet, who runs the Pittsburgh Public Schools, along with our friends at Aurora Innovation and Neighborhood Allies. So thank you. Thank you, Katharine. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And stay tuned to all that we're trying to do to move this region forward. Thanks.
Thank you.